zombies, and welcome back to the CubeKrowd fan server. The world on CubeKrowd was just recently reset. Well, a second world that is, not the primary one. I've still got my other base with the Guardian Temple underneath it. But this one was reset and I've done pretty well. I've got myself suited up in diamond and I've been to the end, even got myself an elytra. But then I went exploring around the overworld trying to find where I want to build my main base. And I think I have found it. And there it is. A savanna mountain, a lovely pinnacle floating above another bit. There's a few bits and pieces around it, but they can be removed. No real dramas. But this is going to be a lovely setting for my base. But I don't want to destroy this. I want to highlight it and I want to make it part of my base, but I don't want to touch it. I don't want to destroy this central pinnacle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to creative and I'm going to work out a ring around the top, which will be my main base. That top, by the way, is 171 blocks high, very tall. And then I'm going to build another ring about 70 blocks below it, a bigger ring that will be my farming, my village and everything else there. I'm going to leave the landscape pretty much untouched. I might remove the water stream coming down, make it a bit more isolated, as well as remove those bits and pieces. But essentially I'm going to wrap my base around this floating rock. That will be marvellous, and I'm going to make use of the skills we learnt in the previous videos on building the rings, spiral staircases and everything else. So let's go over into Creative World and design ourselves a base that we can then transfer over into Survival. I'll see you over there in a moment. So here we are on the CubeKrowd creative server. I've created a block that represents the very tip top of the mountain we were just looking at, and below me is a set of blue glass which represents the ocean level, Y63. So let us get on with things. We first need to get our trusty axe and select our block, because everything that I build is going to be relative to that block, which is the top of the mountain. So first of all, we'll need to outset that and give us some room. So outset 45. Ooh, is that going to work? Yep, it worked. Okay, so capitals work fine. There we go. And now we just need to shift it up a bit. So shift 5 up. So we've moved up a bit because I want that first ring to be a little higher than the top of the mountain. Now, last time I built a slanted Torus, I just sort of slanted it willy-nilly until it was about right. This time I want to make the slant very particular. So I'm going to be looking at slanting a plane first. So let's first of all create a plane. So we want the G command, hollow, centered, with normal glass, maybe black glass, and we want it to be a plane. So Y less than 0. So here is a plane, 5 blocks above our reference point. Now a plane is pretty flat. If I built a torus with this particular setting, it's all going to be just plain flat, all relative, just like what you would get on plots. Not much fun. So undo that. And this time let's rotate it up. Rotate X, Y, and we'll make it just 1. Semicolon, the Y less than 0. So we're rotating the plane horizontally so we get a bit of a slant. Whoa! Well, that's a bit of too much of a slant. I don't think that's going to work too well. So let's undo that. And let's back it off a bit. 0.1. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better. That's a pretty nice slant. It's not too heavy. We could run around all on that, build our base on top of a slant like that. That's not going to be much of a problem. But it's still aligned with the axis. And now what I want to do is I want to rotate this so I get a very particular block pattern. So undo that, and let's add a bit of rotation around the vertical axis. So rotate in the XZ plane this time, and this time we'll use an angle of 1. Remember, these angles are in radians, so 1 represents about, well, not exactly, but about 60 degrees. So there we go. Now let's actually have a look at this. You see here we're getting 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and then occasionally another 2, 2. It's a bit odd. Now I played around with this and I found that a good rotation to get what I'm wanting, which is every second block, is to actually use, let's undo this, and we use a rotation of 1.11. So if we do that, you see here we're now getting mostly 2s. We get 1, 3, but mostly 2. It's pretty close. It's good enough for me. I'm not going to worry too much about that. And you see here that the center point is actually where one of these steps goes through. Now we can adjust that a bit. You can also adjust the plane height a little bit. So if we move the plane down half a block, you see here now the center here will be in the center of one of those plane things. That's pretty good. And that gets us the slope that I can work with. It's not too, we don't end up with these single blocks. We end up with a fairly nice slope in the right angles. So that's what we're going to be working with. Now let us add a torus to that. So instead of this y minus less than 0.5, let's actually add a torus. Now it goes bracket 25 is the major diameter of the torus that I want, square root of x to the power of 2 plus z to the power of 2 bracket to the power of 2 plus y to the power of 2, and that is less than the size of the torus we want in radius, the minor axis, 5 to the power of 2. So if we do that, let's actually change the color and use, say, I don't know, let's see, let's try 14. So that would be our torus, centered on that plane, and it's looking pretty good. And you see here we got that there and that there. Now we see here we're getting this bit here. We'll fix that up in a moment, but what we really want is not that. What we want is an intersection between that. We want this lower half here so I can see the top of the torus here, the halfway point of the torus. Now this is called solid, well, it's solid maths. Basically what we want is something that's the torus and less than the plane. So less than y less than 0 and in the torus. So if we bring up that torus, we can then say and y is less than 0. Now that's not really going to tell us very much, so let's undo all those. Undo times 3 and repeat. There we go. Now I am working in glass, and working in glass is very important. The reason it's very important is because it means I'm not generating lighting updates, and so it comes up pretty fast. If I did this with a solid block, it would generate all sorts of lighting updates and take forever, causing a lot of server lag. Now let's actually have a look at this. We've got a large flat area at the top here. That looks pretty good. And then at the bottom here we've got a bit of a, well, we've got a couple of little blocks there, but that's not going to be too bad because that's going to be the wall. We're going to have this domed over in glass. So this is going to be our floor, and that will be our torus. Now we've set this here as glass. We can actually show the resulting torus. Let's go sit inside the torus. So we'll sit here inside the torus and let's fill it in. This time we do it in black, and I've just removed the plain thing. So we're just going to generate the torus as normal and just fill it in. So here, all the outside has been replaced by black, leaving just the floor. So here's our floor, and here's the dome of the torus. But I also need to know what is the lower part and what's the upper part. And we know this is Y0 on the torus. So let's undo that. And we'll use that trick that we had in one of the very first world edit videos. And that is, we'll change the data value. So we'll say here, data is equal to, if y is less than 0, we'll make the data, question mark, we'll make the data, brackets. So in parentheses here, y less than 0, quote, we want it to be 15 below, and we'll make it 13 above, semicolon. So what we're doing here is changing the data value, the color of the glass, depending on whether it's below y or above y. So, and then here's the rest of the torus. So if we do this, you see here we get green on top, and you'll be black on the bottom. Let's actually get out of here. Up, grab a bit of block, clean it up. So here you go, you've got the three parts. We've got a floor, we've got the base, and we've got our glass roof. The colors don't really matter, because when we're transferring it over to survival, we'll be replacing these with whatever block we want. But we can leave it as transparent glass just so we know what block is what. And that's a key thing. It makes it a lot easier for dealing with things. Now, this is the outside here of the torus is exactly the same height as the floor. Let's actually undo that and change the height a little bit. Instead of y less than 0, let's make it say 0.5. So this is a positive value, so it's going to be a little higher. So anything that's less than 0.5 blocks higher will be black. So if we do this, we see here we get like a bit of a lip. We see here we got a bit of a lip here. Let's actually go inside again. So here we got a bit of a lip in black. We don't have any lip there. We've got it lipping down here. And if we have a look around, it's actually pretty good. Not too bad. So it's a bit flat on this side, a bit there, but that's because of the slant. It works out pretty well. Now I don't normally do things the way I've been doing it here. I normally type the expressions and things into a side window and to another window on the computer screen, like a notepad or an editor, and I make my changes in that and then cut and paste from there into Minecraft. So I keep a record of what I've tried and what I'm trying to do, and I can then make changes slowly but surely and keep a track of things. So for example, let's undo all this, replace 95 all the stained glass with air, and stop myself falling. Here's our original block. So now I can pull up from the editor the final torus that I worked out. So I can grab that, I can then say shift up, outset it, I can then create the floor, and the walls. And there's the torus again. Not quite exactly the same. This one is actually slanted in a negative direction. If you bring up the expression, you see here I've used a negative one. That's because later on I found that it needed to be negative to actually work in the world that I was trying to build for. So the mountain, the way the mountain is and so on, I needed it negative. But that's sort of part of course. It allows me, by having it into a side editor, it allows me to go back and make changes and then redo them very quickly. In a similar way, I can build the lower torus. So if I reselect that, and I do that so that I'm always starting from the reference. So each part I do from the reference point. And so I can now, just adjust the editor here, grab and go 65 blocks down. So it will be 70 from the mid level of this one to the mid-level of the lower torus. 70 blocks down, and then we go outset the 45, and then we can do the floor and the walls. And let's jump down there to have a look. So here is the lower torus. It's bigger. So if we bring up the expression, you see we're using the same slant, although we've rotated it 90 degrees. Pi divided by 2 in radians is 90 degrees. So the slant is rotated differently to the one up there. That one's the slant going this way. In this case, the slant's going that way. So 90 degrees to that one. It's also, the floor is lower. Let's bring up the expression again. We're using a lower floor, so it's minus 2.8 for the black rim, and it was actually, okay, it is 3.5 for the actual floor. So the lip is slightly higher than the actual floor. So we can bring it up there. There we go, 3.5. So here's our lower torus. This will be our farming torus, so I wanted a lot of space here. Made sure there was a bit of a gap in the floor so I can put mine carts in underneath, and it matches up to the top torus. But I need to link these toruses, and this is where things get interesting. This is where we need to actually do some design work, some real heavy duty design work. So let's go reselect our block because we're making a new part, and make some helical stairs. So this time we want to shift down 32. The reason it's 32 is because it's about the halfway point between the average of this floor and the average of that floor. So it just works out. So it's 5 down from here, then 32 down from there, 37 blocks. So it's not exactly the halfway point between the two center lines of the torus, because it's the halfway point between the two floors. So we're now selected at a point midway between the two floors. Let's outset that by 45. Now 45 is going to be a bit much, but that will give us a start. And to make things easier, I'm going to actually remove the green blocks. I'm going to remove the roof temporarily. So we've just got the floor and the lip. So if I've just removed the green blocks, I can redo that at the end. I've got everything recorded in the editor, so I can recreate if I need to, but it leaves me to work out a helical stairs from the floor to the floor and see what I'm doing. To start with, let's generate a a vertical cylinder. So this is a cylinder, so it's x squared, z squared, and then a radius of 3.4. So, and it's outset 28 from the center. So the center point is there. We can outset 28 in the x direction. So because it is, oops, let's bring it up again. Because it's negative, it'll actually offset in the positive direction. So just as we explained in the previous video. So what's happened here? Here we go. Made a mistake. Ah, here it is. Now this is just a vertical cylinder, and as you can see, it just misses the edge of the upper cylinder, and it just misses the edge of the lower cylinder. So it's pretty good, but we want to actually have it go into the cylinder. So we need to slant it a bit this way. So we need to adjust the x direction based on the y height. So y0 here, so we want to push it this way, we want to push it that way. So the next expression is where we do that. Oops, we don't need a triple at the front. Oh, there we go. And there it is. Oops, we didn't remove the other one. So undo 2, redo the expression. Here we go. And you see here, we're now on the here, and we're now to there. Let's get a bit better, but we can continue on. We can continue adjusting things to actually get it the way we want it. So undo that, and we can do another expression. Oops, here we go, another expression, and it's getting closer. we're pretty close here. It's just clipping the edge here, and it's just clipping the edge there. And undo that. And here was the final expression that I worked out slowly but surely, just tweaking the numbers. And the numbers here is that this is the center point, how far out in the X direction is the center point, and then we adjust the Y, so it's pushing inward 2.5 as the Y goes positive, positive Y, inward 2.5 minus, so we have a negative there, and then 35 is just the height of the thing. So we went 40, it's 70 blocks between the floors, so 35. So we're 2.5 blocks further in, and that's just the cylinder, normal cylinder expression. So we're slanting the cylinder to match it up to there. So here it's just clipped the outside, that's good, and here it's just clipped the inside. So that will be the slant, that's a slant in the helical torus, so it'll be a bit smaller at the top and a bit wider at the bottom. The next bit is we want two of them, and this is where this gets a little tricky. So I'm just going to bring up the expression, undo that, and bring up the expression. What we've done here is if X is negative, so we've pushed this thing in the positive direction. If X is negative, we want to rotate everything by pi, that is 180 degrees. So if we're over here, we want to rotate the coordinate over to here so that we get a duplicate of our cylinder here over there. So the rest of it is exactly as we had before, but if the X is negative, make a copy of the positive value. So that will give us two cylinders, exactly 180 from each other. Pretty nifty, huh? That means I only have to deal with one and the other will follow suit. So let's continue. We need, now as we've done in previous videos, when we turn it into a helix, this is going to get very thin height-wise because everything gets spread out. So we need to expand this in the Z direction to make it work when we turn it into a helix. So here we've got a Z divided by 2. By halving the Z, we're actually doubling it in the actual result. So we end up with a spread out cylinder. And there we have it. So here is our cylinder. That's what we're going to be rotating around to form a helix. And undo that. Now, before we go on, I'm wanting to make a staircase, which means, like the torus, we need to put in a floor on the cylinder. And the floor, as it's healing around, the floor will be vertical. So, like the cylinder, like what we did before, we actually put in a floor. If we look here, we go and Z less than -1. It's not 0, it's -1, because you'll be adding a staircase on it. So this will be a base. So here will be skewed out and around, and we're putting staircases on this surface. It may look vertical here, but it's going to be about a 45-degree angle later on. So here we have a half stretched out cylinder. And because we're rotating at 180, it's the opposite direction over here. This is basically just to check on things, make sure that it's going to work okay. So now we do the helix. Here's the expression, and here's the helical expression we developed last time. It's pi, so it's 180 degrees over a period of 70. So from floor to floor, we're going 180 degrees. This will be adjusted later, and we'll see that as we work. So let's actually do that. And here's that cylinder we had before. Now note, it's actually rotated around because that's the 0 point down there. That's where we've got the center of our region that we're working in. Our world edit region is down here. So that's the x-axis, and then it zooms up that way. So while the cylinder was here, the staircases are actually here. What this is, however, is just to have a look and see, make sure that it's going to work out okay. See here, this is not going to work out very well if we're trying to put stair blocks on that. We want that a bit more 45 degrees. And the upper section is where it's going to be, because the upper section is smaller than the lower section. So it's a little bit smaller radius. So if there's going to be a problem, it's going to be on the upper section block. So if we look down here, here's more. See, that's not going to be very good for staircases. So undo that and we adjust. So we try a little bit more skew. So instead of 70, we've now made it 60. And if we have a look here, that's better. It's getting there. It's enough for stair blocks to be put in place. But if we look up here, we see, yeah, here's another one. It's okay right on the edge because that's going to be wall. This is not right on the edge. That's going to be a problem. I could probably do that, but then it'll not work up here. So that's not really going to work too well. So we need to have it stretched out a little bit more. And that was actually 55. I'm just going to do it direct, even though that's what I've got in the editor. Go 55. And here, as you can see, we no longer have those block things, those problems for stairs. So 55 looks like it. There might be one or two in places, but it'll be right on the edge, but it doesn't look like there's any at all. Looks like it's actually going to work out very well. This is another reason why it's good to work with glass. You can see through it to see the blocks you're working. So 55 looks like it's going to be it. So undo that. The next step is to get it to rotate in the right position. We don't want it landing on the top or the bottom on either of those two toruses. So let's actually bring up the expression and just try one. This was the first I tried. So all I did was I took this rotation by Y and then I added a constant. I just added 1. Remember, that's in radians, so we shifted it about 60 degrees around, and that just to see what happens. The rest of the expression is exactly the same as before. So here we have, it's moved off the top here, it's over here. Remember, this is going to actually have an opening, so you have staircases here. And let's actually have a look down here. Yeah, pretty good. And if we look down there, we see here it's going in there. That's the bottom, so it's very close here to the bottom. Might be a bit too close. Oh no, it's not the bottom. The bottom's over there. This one is into the bottom. Yeah, so this is no good. We need to rotate it around that way a little bit. Maybe try and get it to a bit more centered, so it's a bit too close to the top here, and down there it's a bit too close to the other one too. So we need to adjust the rotation. And the rotation that I finally worked out was, instead of 1, it was actually 0.4. So undo, paste in. Oh, that's not it. Copy, paste in. There we go. So it's 0.4 rotation. So we've rotated the whole thing 0.4 to get the stairs aligned. So here we've got the stairs there, we've got the stairs here, and down here we've got it into the slanted area there, leaving the top free and the bottom free. So the two big flat areas are okay. That's my final placement of the stairs. Now we need to try and adjust that height. We can't have it sticking out like that. We want to have it cut off close to the floor here. So we need to adjust the height of the volume. We don't want to change the width. It was outset by 45. We only want to adjust the vertical height of the region so that it gets cut off at the floor level. We don't want to clip it on the side, because if you do, it's going to get clipped on the edge there. So we inset from the 45 by 9. So vertically only, inset vertically only 9. So instead of 45, it'll become, what is it, 36 high, which sounds a bit right. So undo that, redo that staircase now that we've clipped it, and here you can see we've clipped it here. Here we've clipped it just a little bit below the stairs. That's okay, it's going to be fine. It's going to go round like that. We'll just have to hollow out the floor. Down here, have a look. We see here we've stopped just a little bit above the floor because this is actually a fairly low part. And here we've gone into the floor slightly. We can work with that. You also see here how it's actually hitting the sides. That will be okay. So now that we've got our staircase positioned, its height right and so on, we can actually replace those with the working thing. So we can grab our expression. I've re-recorded in the things the shifts, the outsets and the insets, and oh, we've got a fly hacker, the 5th M5. Well, I'll deal with him in a moment. So here we go, come on. Expression. So here we've got our rotation, it's in the inset, and this one is just to do the floor. So 0. And I did it in orange because the white I tend to reserve for actual development work. So that's the orange, that will be the floor. We put staircases along here. And then we can put in the rest of the cylinder by taking out that less than z minus 1, and we put in our data values. So if the z value is less than -8, we use dark grey, which will represent the base, and the roof of 8, light grey. So there's our staircases. Now note I've used different colours for everything. That will make it easier for replacement later. It also makes it easier to actually have a look. So if we look in here, we can now see where everything is. We can cut out the floor here, and we can do the various works. I've got everything recorded so I can rebuild each of the individual components, and I'm just going to do that. I'm going to just remove everything. So replace, I did this before, replace all of 95 with air. And it hasn't quite done it because we had inset before. So if we outset vertically 9 again, you'll get it. Everything covered. And everything's gone. Now I'm just going to rebuild this using the expressions that I had developed before, and I'll be back in a moment. So here I've recreated everything from the equation, so I know it's correct. This is actually, and I can double check everything, make sure it's fine. At this point, what I'll be doing is manual cleanup. This would be my final creation, and I'll be cutting and making copies of this for survival. But we need to first clean up the joint. So I'm going to make a hole here and just go over here. Here is where the upper stairs are coming through in one of the things. So first of all, we've got this bit here, the stairs here, we've got a bit of the black here. This has been cut off. We just need to clean up and remove the excess from the build. And we basically just continue on cleaning up the joins. so that we can then join up the stairs with the rest. Now this bit, this is the ceiling here, I'll leave that as it is now, but later on I'll probably need to replace that with black glass or whatever, the black glass, so that it will become part of the base so I don't see out into the underside here. But essentially we got the stairs, we put in layers of stairs here. I don't do that here, I do that in survival, and then I go around, do the one over there and do the 2 connections down there. So 4 joins, and I just need to complete the joins so that it all works out. Maybe adjust the path so I can actually travel here, put in a couple of little blocks like that round so that it all works out. And that basically is the build. I'm just going to continue on with this and I'll get back to you so that we can get to the next place, which is block place replacement. I'll see you in a bit. Well, after some intense manual fixes, I've fixed up the 4 joins and we're ready for block replacement. This is basically going to be replacing everything except for the stairs and the floors here, because that will be done in survival with appropriate blocks to arrange things. But all the green here we need to replace with black glass. All the black glass we need to replace with black concrete, although previous to 1.12 I would have used coal blocks. Similarly for the Torus, sorry, the Helix here. So let's actually get that. It'll go shift 32 down. Oops. And out set 45, which should envelop everything in here. Now we can grab from my notes, replace all the black glass with black concrete. This could cause some lighting updates because we're replacing glass now with a solid block. So here we go. We can make a note of how many blocks. That will give us an idea of how many blocks we're going to need in survival. That's quite an amount. Did it actually work? Or it's still working? There we go. So all the bottom parts have been replaced by black concrete. Got a few here from my manual edits, but that will be okay. We'll work out in a moment. Down below there, base is now black concrete. Now we can also do the same thing with the grey, replacing with black concrete for the Helix. There we go. So here it is. Oh, we've got one mistake here. So we'll just grab a bit of black concrete, cover that up. And with the glass and blocks all replaced, it is now time to make images of this so I can transfer it to survival. I'll be doing that in the same way I've shown in a previous video. That is, I'm taking layers of the object out to somewhere to one side, putting in maybe sea lanterns underneath it and taking vertical snapshots of it for plan views. There's going to be a lot of them, particularly on the stairs. That's going to be very tedious. The rings is going to be a lot easier than the stairs, but I think it'll be worth it. So I'm going to get on with doing that. Probably take me a couple of weeks of nights and free time to do, and I'll see you in a bit. And after quite a few weeks work, I'm finally complete. I've built the base in survival, and as you can see behind me, it looks marvelous. It's all black concrete with black glass, a bit of stone. I tell you, getting a lot of sand even with a desert nearby and making all that black concrete and glass is a lot of work, but I think it's well worth it. Let's go and have a bit of a fly around and have a bit of a look at the base before signing off. So let's go have a look. And yup. And there it is. The base is now all around the central rock. I've got a beacon there which allowed me to dig some dirt there. I've been filling in the soil, I've been making a few crops, even got a few villages over here. Here we go. Whoop. And then my main base ring up the top with some landing pads on the side. Whoop, can't get that one. And let's try this again, shall we? Whoop, yes, there we go. Just made. So I've got my portal. This is the main way in, either that or by elytra. Yes, this survival is got heads, so I've got quite a few heads for this world. And my chests and so on. I've got the stairs. The orange glass that was built in survival has been replaced with all stairs, so we can go all the way down. That's pretty boring, but I'll leave it like that. And that's my base. So I'll leave you there. It's been a long video, a lot of work, but I think it's well worth it. I've got a lovely base with a great central mountain right in the middle there, unlit, so mobs keep spawning on it, which is great. It's sort of like the safe mob looking zone. So until next time, goodbye all you zombies.